So I was thinking more about how do I differentiate between my will and God's will. So one way to see a difference is that my will often be rooted in one of my or all of my five major character defects: selfishness, self-seeking, inconsideration, dishonesty, and fear. Those are the five major character defects from a 12-step perspective. So my will often come from those five character defects. God's will is not likely to be shot filled with those five character defects. Another difference is that my will is often loud and God's will is quiet, as the Bible says, a still small voice. Then my will is clear. Like I can see the path ahead. I can see what I need to do. I need to see what I need to change. I need to see where I need to go. God's will is often not nearly so clear. I need to step out in faith, and it doesn't necessarily look so right to me. Okay, so the reason I care about the difference between my will and God's will is that following my own will has not worked out so well for me. Another thing that comes in here is your relationship with your Father. I think most of us tend to relate to God the same way that we relate to our fathers. So I had kind of a distant relationship with my father, and it wasn't distant just because I converted to Judaism. It was distant prior to my conversion to Judaism. Pretty much always had a fairly distant relationship with God, but that meant my father always scared me, and so I guess God's kind of scared me, and so I had a distant relationship with my father. I kind of found my father kind of distant, emotionally cold, critical, and I rarely found myself looking forward to spending time with him. And I've had a similar relationship to God. I have not found myself looking forward to spending time with God. And so I've tended to have an instinctive reaction of hatred towards people who remind me of my father, an instinctive rebellion against religious authority, particularly people who I think abuse religious authority. So if it sounds like I'm saying my father abused religious authority, I'm not meaning in sexual or financial ways. It's just that I thought a lot of his rhetoric was dishonest. And I remember he would run devotionals morning and evening in our home, and he would usually center the devotionals around the character defects of other family members and choose Bible verses to reprove people. And so I found that a little bit of an abuse of religious authority. So I guess I've always had an instinctive skepticism, or just an instinctive wariness for an abuse of religious authority by religious leaders. And many of the most charismatic rabbis who I've wanted to follow, I eventually realized that they're engaging in some kind of scam. Not necessarily an illegal scam, but just a scam. So what are some other ways to differentiate between my will and God's will? Yeah, God will often put up obstacles and you just don't see the way, and it's like, God, why are you prompting me in this direction? It doesn't make sense to me. And so Babs says, did not God create my will? Well, God, from a religious or spiritual perspective, God created me with the capacity to pursue my own will, and if I didn't have any will, we wouldn't get anything done in life. We need will. We need to some degree to be selfish and to be lustful and to be seeking honor and prestige and love. It's when these desires get out of whack with what is overall in our benefit that we run into trouble. So, for instance, parts of my life I've devoted way too much emphasis to achieving sexual satisfaction or romantic highs or trying to get attention seeking or glory seeking. So what are some more differences here between God's will and my will? So authority. So yeah, I've always had this instinctive rebellion against authority, and that's kind of led me much of my life to an instinctive rebellion against God, and God's will, and God's law, and religious authority. And I have an instinctive reaction to employers the same way that I had to my father, kind of a fear and a skepticism. And or on the other hand, I've also had a problem with trying to plug the hole in my soul from my lack of relationship with my father, with by plugging that hole with relationship with my boss, turning him into a substitute father figure. And sometimes that's asking too much of the workplace relationship. So I think coming to peace with God's will involves coming to peace with authority, and not just in this mystical spiritual realm, but say in the realm of employment and obeying traffic laws. Like, one of the first things my sponsor said to me is, I want you to drive the speed limit, no faster than the speed limit, obey the traffic laws. I've often kind of rolled through stop signs. I've not been a great driver. I've gotten into several accidents that were my fault. I've gotten in a lot of moving violations, a lot meaning maybe once every 2 years. I get a speeding ticket or rolling through a stop sign. So part of my recovery is to obey the traffic laws. So I'm not driving the speed limit, but I'm consciously limiting myself to no more than 10 miles over the speed limit. So in a 35 zone, I try not to go over 45. In a 25 zone, I try not to go over 35. So it's not exactly what my sponsor wanted for me, but it's progress, not perfection. So I think part of tuning into God's will is making peace with authority, that there are people who at times have legitimate authority over us, such as employers and the law, police, a landlord, if you're in a religion, religious authority. So I think part of my path towards tuning into God's will for me is developing a sense of peace with authority, a willingness to take directions. So I take directions from my sponsor even when I think it's stupid or pointless, a willingness to take direction from employers or clients who are paying me really good money. And yeah, just want to keep exploring this difference between my will and God's will. My will very likely to be shot filled with selfishness, self-seeking, dishonesty, inconsideration, and fear. And instead, I want to come out of the opposite of inconsideration is consideration. The opposite of fear is faith. The opposite of self-seeking is selflessness or other-seeking, being of service to others. The opposite of dishonesty is honesty. So when I come out of those character defects, I'm much more likely to be tuned in to radio station WGOD. So yeah, today I want to be faith-seeking. I want to be considerate. I want to be honest. I want to be of service to others. And I want to be generous. So now I'm going to get on my knees, as I do every morning. I pray to God, help me to treat myself with love and compassion today, and to treat other people with love and compassion, and to seek out God's will for me today and for the strength to carry that out. So that's my prayer for today. Take care, guys.